I hate Israel. They are constantly breaking international law.
What are you talking about?
They are keeping millions of refugees from returning to their homes in Palestine.
We spoke about this. There are a few thousand refugees, not millions, and they cannot be allowed to return until the Palestinians stop terrorism and mortar attacks, not only for safety reasons, but according to UN Resolution 194.
I have spent some time with a friend who works at the United Nations. He said there are actually millions of Palestinian refugees.
International law defines refugees and displaced persons as people who had to leave their homes due to war or threat of violence. It relates to those people who fled. The UN created a new concept of refugee status passing through the generations only for the Palestinians to provide them with aid.
They are the only people with this classification.
Yes. The millions of refugees around the world from hundreds of countries have one definition of refugee and one UN agency devoted to helping them. The UN has another distinct entity just for Palestinian refugees, the UNRWA. The organization modified the definition of refugees for Palestinians to enable it to provide services for descendants under the mandate for which it was established. That does not mean the definition of refugee has actually changed.
Oh. He did not tell me that. He did tell me that Israel has more censures against it than any other country.
It is true. Israel has more censures against it than every other country in the world combined.
I am surprised to hear you admit it. You usually defend Israel.
No. What I do is speak the truth. We can debate the underlying reasons for the facts.
What possible other reason can there be other than Israel being a rogue, terrible country?
Do you honestly believe that a country with 6 million people has committed more crimes than the rest of the world with 6 billion people?
You admitted as much a moment ago. Israel has been censured by the UN more than the entire rest of the world.
But the reason for this is that world admonishes Israel constantly for any real or perceived problem and ignores much worse atrocities being committed by other countries.
Aha! Now I see you putting on your Israel spin on things again.
Here are some facts and you decide. You are familiar with the Gaza flotilla.
The 9 peace activists that Israel killed attempting to provide aid to Gaza.
6 boats were attempting to break the blockade Israel set up around Gaza to prevent arms shipments to the region that continues to shell Israel even though the Israeli military left the region 5 years earlier. 5 of the flotilla boats were taken without incident. People on the 6th boat fought with the Israelis and people were killed. The UN condemned Israel and demanded a full investigation.
Rightly so.
Did you know that Syria killed over 20,000 of its own citizens in Hama in 1982 and the UN said nothing?
That was an internal issue to Syria.
Did you know that Indonesia killed over 100,000 people in East Timor over 25 years, and the UN only censured the country twice over that entire time?
But the UN did censure them.
They killed on average 10 people every day for 25 years. Israel can get 2 censures a month for a botched operation while brutal dictators deliberately kill people en masse without comment.
What do you want me to say?
Did you know that Iraq used mustard gas to kill its own Kurdish population? The UN wouldn't so much as say Iraq's name, let alone censure it, but rather state that chemical weapons are inappropriate.
What do you want me to say?
The UN has not censured Iran for arming terrorist groups. The UN did not censure Russia for killings in Chechnya or any of the actions by China.
Many countries also act badly. That does not mean that Israel doesn't do so also.
The UN denounces Israel for benign things like the Prime Minister visiting the Temple Mount, the holiest place in Judaism. The UN Human Rights Council has condemned Israel over 30 times and never once condemned Sudan, which aids terrorists, has killed thousands of people, and still practices slavery.
The Israeli visit was a provocation.
A provocation? Are you serious? Visiting a holy site? Here's a comparison. In 2008, the US killed 37 people attending a wedding in Afghanistan. Was there a censure at the UN? Did the world demand a full investigation headed by a UN representative? Did countries around the world summon U.S. representatives to explain their actions? No. It barely made world news. The U.S. military had also killed a wedding party in Iraq, including the bride. No condemnation. The U.S. got away with an apology.
You see, the Americans apologize. The Israelis just walk around always thinking they are correct.
Israel apologized for the killing of civilians during the Gaza war. That did not satisfy anyone.
I see your point.
I am not sure which comes first, world opinion that is reflected in the UN, or the UN shaping world opinion. Either way it is troubling.
I must become more educated on my own and not take select facts from parties like the UN. I will use the internet to gather as much information from all sources so I can form my own opinions.
People have a choice. They can either use the internet to selectively see information they want to reaffirm their positions, or they can truly look at all of the facts and assess if their current biases are really fair.
You know, there's a third choice. Pretend to look at everything and scream their biases anyway. It works for my friend at the UN.